Hey everyone, and welcome to the tutorial series for the Procedural City generator. In this tutorial, we'll be taking a look at how to use a custom landscape material with PCG. So we'll take a look at our actual landscape material, specifically our paint layers, the list that we have, and then we'll be seeing how we can replace those paint layers on several base blueprints in PCG so they can actually paint the landscape as you're generating your city. So let's go ahead and jump into Unreal. In this case, I'm using a fresh 4.27 PCG project, and I've added an asset. You can see it right here. In this case, it's called Landscape Pro. This was free a few months ago on the rotation, but obviously this applies to any landscape material. Before we do anything, we can just take a quick look at how the material looks. So click on Modes, to the Landscape mode. Then you can go into the Paint tab here, and right here on the landscape pane you can see that we have several different layers, actually quite a few layers, several grass layers, dirt, rock, and we even have additional layers that I have the grass texture, dirt texture without any plants. So our goal is to try to replicate this list in those blueprints so then we can actually use them, use the material in its full potential. So let's go back into our select mode, and now you can open the PCG main panel here. And because this is the level tutorial 1.1 level, we're using the same one. We don't have to set up a city. Everything's kind of set up for us. So before we start generating anything, let's go down, zoom all the way down, just so we can see how that looks like. I can click play, and you can see that right now we already have that landscape material applied to our landscape, and it looks way nicer than the default PCG material. Has a lot more variety as far as grass and shrubbery, so it's going to look really nice. You can see some flowers here. So we have this, and all I did is obviously I have applied the material here under landscape material, but now we want to make sure that the roads can use that material. So if I click on generate connecting roads, and let's just do generate main roads here. Let's just zoom here real quick. You can see that we have a road here. If we go down here, we're not gonna do it the whole thing here. If we go down here, just selecting one of the roads, you can see that we have the landscape selected here, and we have an option here, and this is going to be the landscape layer index. And right now we're going to apply layer index 2 to the landscape following the road spline. However, if we go up here, all the way up here, and click on apply materials only 3C, we click here and nothing seems to happen. That is because we have to manually change those values for the road. So what we'll do is go ahead and open BP generic road base, and we're going to go to the function align landscape. All right, and you can find it right here. If you go under the functions tab here, you can find it right here, function align landscape. And what's going to happen is you'll see this part where it says editor apply spline. This is the actual function that applies the spline to the landscape proxy and tries to paint the layer based on the landscape layer index. However, if I zoom in here, you'll notice that the layers that we have here by default are the 4 different layers that are come by default with the PCG material. We don't want to do that. We want to actually change those layers to match our landscape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this kind of a window here. And if we go back to our landscape mode and we see all the different layers, what I can do now is I can just kind of make this a little bit bigger here. And right here, you can actually click on index 0, and we're going to try to do grass 1. So click on the drop down here, and you can see that we have a lot of layers. Probably easier just to search. So grass 1, notice that we have grass 1 and grass 1 no plants. We'll choose grass 1. The second one is grass 2, so click on the drop down, type grass 2. Then we're going to go for dirt. Oops. And you can see that we have dirt, and then we have rock, And you can see that we have several rocks. So I'm going to do rock 1. And then if we want to add more, click on add pin. You can see that we're going to have one more here. And in this case, it's going to be rock 2 right here, and so on and so forth. And you can go ahead and try to match all of the layers here. So just to save on some time, I've actually pre-done that before we started the tutorial, and it's going to look kind of like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to replace this with the final list here that matches my new landscape. Then I'm going to hit compile and save. It's going to take a second here because I have some rows generated. But the good thing is that now that we have this matching one-on-one, whatever landscape layer index that we have by default will match exactly what we have here. You don't have to do it if for some reason you just want to apply 3 different layers only for PCG. You can just go ahead and do that and only have 3. However, you need to keep in mind that the landscape layer index only refers to this array here. So this is why I suggest probably better just to have a one-on-one representation. It just keeps things a little bit cleaner and simpler. Now we're going to do the same thing for these other classes. And if we go back to our PowerPoint slide, you can see that we have the 4 different blueprints that we need to change and the name of the function here. So we just did generic road base, and the function is fnAlignLandscape. We're going to do the same thing for BP_roundabout, BP_cul-de-sac_base, and BP_PCG_building_base. Notice that the function has the same name. The only one that's a little bit different is the building, and there's 2 different functions here. That's pretty much it. So now what we're going to do is we're literally going to select this and Control-C to copy, and then open the roundabout, Control-V to paste. So we don't have to add this over and over. We just need to add it once. I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Compile and save. Go to the cul-de-sac, paste, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So even though this is manual, once you do the work only once, you won't have to come back and do it again and again and again. And now here we have 2 different functions, fnAlignLandscape, and for buildings we'll have 2 different instances of where we're going to apply it. So we'll have to replace it in both. Replace it here. And replace it here. And we are going to go to the function fnAlignLSDriveway. This is the one for the driveway spline. And we're going to do it here as well. And we'll just leave it here for now. I know it's not as pretty, but we're just trying to show you guys exactly what you need to do. So now if we go back, and let's go back to select mode. If I select my road here, now I go down here, and now this landscape layer index will coincide with the layers that I have on my landscape. So in this case, if I go down here, let's go ahead and use a layer that removes the grass. So hopefully your landscape has one of those layers. So if we just say grass 1 or grass 2, it'll apply it here, but you'll still have grass, which is going to go all over the roads. So in this case, let's do grass 1, no plants. And since this is the one we're going to use, we have to figure out what layer that is. So that's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the layer is going to be 7. So what we can do is we can come back to the generic road base and change this default value from 2 to 7. That way it affects all roads, main, minor, highway roads, and side roads. You could do it manually per road, but it's probably better just to make that change right here. It's going to be layer 7. And the same thing for roundabout. Select the variable here. And in this case, it's going to be 7. Obviously, if you want the roundabouts and cul-de-sacs to have a different layer, paint a different layer, obviously do that here. but probably a good idea to just change the default values here. And again, the landscape layer index will do the same thing, 7 here. And these are going to be the same. So now we've gone back and added the specific layer index that we want and matched our landscape. So now if we go back to select and click on our road here, you can see that we have layer 7. And in this case, just to test, we can just click on apply materials only. And notice that we've applied a material here and we have some shader compilation. But now if we open our material, actually let it finish compiling, but if we open our material, make a small change and then save it, the grass meshes will be forced to update, and then you'll see that we have the right material along the road. So that's one of those kinks with Unreal Engine, is that you want to force the update for these grass maps. So in this case, I just opened it. I'll make a small change, literally just toggle something. And now as you can see, if we look at the road, and I'm just going to hit play here, notice that now the grass is only on the side of the road. Obviously, we have not aligned the terrain. We're going to do that in a second, but I just wanted to show you the most important part, which is the grass is now outside of the road. That is probably the most important part when selecting your landscape layer. Otherwise, you're going to have grass all over your roads. So really quickly, let's go back here and generate some minor roads. And let's go ahead and show stats. That way we can see this. And honestly, let's just leave it like that. There's no reason to continue generating anything else. So right here, we're going to select our main roads. I'm not going to create intersections or anything. Again, the main point of this is just to show that you can actually paint materials. So select the main roads, align terrain, and apply materials. We're going to do the same thing for minor roads. And now we've only generated main and minor roads. And now if we go down here and do the same thing, open your landscape material, make a small change and save it. Now you see that we have rows that still have the grass texture that we selected, but there is no actual grass plants. So you can see here. Now let's go ahead and just quickly spawn our buildings. Click on spawn road buildings. Just give it a second. I should have changed it from all roads to selected roads to make this tutorial a little bit quicker. If you've seen my road management tutorial, you know that you can now pretty much control which roads are used for spawning buildings. So in this case, I'm using all of the roads. So go ahead and all of the buildings spawn. And I'm not going to keep, this is just the first batch. So I'm just going to leave it like this. But you can see here, the same thing happened. We are using the same layer and removing the grass. So we're going to go back to roads, and we can select all our minor roads and apply our materials, and go back and do the same thing for our main roads here, just to clean this up. And if you want to, you can go back to buildings. Let's select all commercial buildings. Actually, not industrial, residential. We're just going to do the example here. Select all the residential buildings, set the mailbox. You can see that the mailbox have been set. And now we'll do the same thing for the driveway. Apply the action. You can see that the splines have been updated. And now with all of this selected, go all the way down to driveway options, deselect use driveway, and click it again to update the spline here. So you can see now we have our roads again, and look at the difference here where we have no grass. So one more time, we'll go back to the material and make a very small change. Click save. And that should save all of our materials. And let's just go ahead and select, just to finish it off, all of our main roads, and remove construction mode, and do the same thing for our minor roads and remove construction mode. So we have that. And just to top it all off, let's go ahead and spawn some foliage. And I've already set up some foliage that goes with this pack. So we already have an area spawner. So I'm just going to go ahead and spawn some foliage. Just click it a few times. Why not? And let's see how that looks when I click play. Give it just a second. And you'll see that the grass should be generating in just a second here. Oh. For some reason, the grass did not generate here. That's weird. So maybe there's a shader compilation issue here. Oh, there you go. Sorry. It just, my computer seems to be slow while I'm recording. There you go. All right. So, all right. So we do have grass, and you can see that it's obviously not perfect. You may have to do some manual adjustments there, but you can see that we have a very, very dense forest that obviously looks way nicer. But now when I go to the road itself doesn't have any foliage. Actually, we may need to redo that on the houses, as you can see that this didn't happen for this house. So you can do that on a per house basis. So if we select this one, for example, you can go all the way down here to landscape. And in this case, we have landscape layer index 1. So see, in this case, we did not update the buildings. So in this case, let's just do layer 7, which is the one we wanted, and go back here and say align landscape. And now if we update our terrain, you'll notice that now the grass is gone. And I'm kind of glad this happened, because if this happens to you, I'll show you how to fix it. So let me verify that now the grass is not overlapping the floor. See that? So what happened is even though we changed the base class to use layer 7, this specific building did not update and continued having layer 1. So this is going to happen sometimes. If you go and open the base building class here, we change the value to 7. But if you go, for example, this is going to be residential. I'm going to just open a residential. If you open one of these residential blueprints and you try to look at the default value for the landscape layer index, notice that this did not update. So in this case, you'll have to change the value here to reset the default. Click on compile, and you'll have to do this for all of your buildings if this tends to happen. So make sure you verify that you have the correct layer on your buildings. You can see here as I'm opening different buildings and I'm verifying under landscape, the landscape layer index remained at 1 when we actually want it to be 7 in our case. So make sure you make the changes to your buildings, and then you can go ahead and spawn the buildings, or you can select all of the buildings again using this selection box and redo the align landscape here, and it should then spawn the buildings correctly. All right, guys, and that is pretty much it. Again, it is actually very simple. What we want to do is we want to change the layer information on several key blueprints to match our landscape, and then we want to adjust the landscape layer index appropriately so then PCG can use the landscape. Now, if you're wondering why this is so manual, it is because for the longest time you could not reference these assets as a variable. So PCG's base version is 4.22, and in 4.22, if I right click, I do not have the option of making this a variable, meaning that there is no way for me to make this more intuitive. Otherwise, I would have made a list that you can easily switch. Now in 4.27, this is actually allowed, which means that when Unreal Engine 5 comes out, I'm going to be making this process a lot more intuitive. Either I'm going to use a data table, or I'm going to have this list just be an array right here under setup, so you can just open this and manually change the list of landscape layers as opposed to having to manually go into functions and change it. So thankfully Unreal Engine 5 is coming out hopefully pretty soon, and whenever I update to Unreal Engine 5, the process is going to be way more intuitive. But at least for now, if you want to use this version, obviously in Unreal Engine 4, these are the steps that you need to do. So hopefully this tutorial was useful. Go ahead and use any landscape material you want. You just need to customize just a few blueprints. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you haven't joined Discord, please join. Come say hi, come give me your feedback. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask there. I'm a lot more active on Discord as well, so you'll probably get help a lot faster. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.